Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about that terrible arrest that went wrong in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This, of course, happened a few months back and it sparked many demonstrations that went insane and caused riots and protests across the country. Yes, we've been sitting in turmoil ever since that happened. And today we're going to reflect on it again because we've recently seen an announcement from the family of the deceased, and they're going to announce what they're going to do with all the money they've collected. That's right. This arrest gone wrong has caused the family of the deceased to raise a lot of money. We, of course, have seen this incident race baited across the country. All of the news media is trying to support the person who died and vilify the cops. And sure, there were things done wrong. Of course, no one is defending that death. We don't want this person to have died. We don't want cops to abuse their power. But the story is actually much more complicated and nuanced than people would have you believe. We're going to talk about some of those details later. And also, we're going to talk about what the family is doing with those funds, because I find it rather interesting. I see a lot of these people and people donating to funds like this, people donating to BLM and other causes. Like, where is the money going, though? Like, we want to see where it's going. And I know BLM hasn't done a darn thing to help any people that they claim to help, but George Floyd and his family don't seem to be doing much good with their money either. So here's where we're going to see an interesting information. It says from CNN, the foundation created by George Floyd's family has launched a new initiative to project a hologram of Floyd at a handful of Confederate monuments throughout the South. So right out the gate, I mean, very, very interesting angle. I would say a definite consideration of them wasting the money, because, I mean, this isn't helping anything. This is just a vanity project. They're trying to project him in the air with a hologram. I mean, that also sounds pretty expensive to do at multiple monuments throughout the South. And yeah, there's issues with that too. I mean, George Floyd happened in the North, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I don't get why they're projecting him at Southern monuments in the South. Like, I know they have their own reasons and they say the Confederates are super racist and all that stuff. And yeah, there's arguments for that. Surely, I'm not here to defend them, but it's just weird. It's in a totally different region, and they're also spending the money for this suspect cause. You know, they're not using the money to say actually help Black people or actually, petition to change the laws to make the cops less brutality, like less brutal, and help in things that are actually related. It's like, no, they're going to project him at these monuments. It's just really strange to me. And on top of that, it's just also, it's trying to make him this martyr. And I think it's worth noting the guy, like, we don't want to like vilify the dead. Like, I want to be respectful. It sucks that he died, but we got to remember there is bad things that he did to get himself there. Like, not only was he arrested for sending and trying to spend counterfeit money, but he also happened to be highly intoxicated with many different drugs in his system that contributed to his death. In addition, he had previously caught the virus, which had caused him not to be able to breathe properly. That's why he said, I can't breathe. So all of these things came together to cause him to go down. And sure, yes, the cops went too far and they made things even worse for him, but there's actually arguments and talks about the autopsy and saying that it wasn't even necessarily 100% the cop's fault. But that's besides the point. The point is, this guy has a very, very bad past. We're not just talking about that day either. Like, he was arrested and went to jail many times before. Specifically, one incident lots of people want to bring up is the fact that George Floyd held a woman hostage while she was pregnant and let another guy like rob her house. He was holding a weapon up to this pregnant woman's belly saying, hey, don't move, we're going to rob you. And that was one of the times he ended up going to jail. And just to think about all that put together, you got to say, hey, is this guy really someone who should have a hologram up on the screen there? Like, he's some kind of superhero, like he's like Jesus Christ or a god or something. Like, he does get compared to Jesus too. Like, don't make that as a mistake. I'm not just exaggerating there. Like, liberals are trying to compare him to Jesus and like Malcolm X and all these other heroes from our past, like, Martin Luther King Jr. and stuff like that. But the problem is, like, Jesus never held a pregnant woman hostage. Like, Martin Luther King Jr. was never caught like resisting arrest while high on a bunch of drugs. Like, these guys had more respectful lives. Like, sure, they made mistakes, especially some of the more recent guys. Like, I'm not saying anyone's perfect, but I mean, they're trying to put George Floyd up there with these heroes like he's like Superman or something, but really he's more like the Joker. He's more like a villain who might have not deserve to die. Surely, I know he didn't deserve to die. That's certain. But, he definitely contributed to that factor. And the fact that they're going to put this hologram everywhere is rather funny to me, like kind of messed up too. And it just goes to show that this money that they're raising, it's not going to good places. All right, let's next go and see what this video says here. George Floyd's legacy will live on in the form of a hologram. It'll temporarily alter the monuments with a 3D hologram. Floyd's hologram features fireflies forming into the face with his name on graffiti. Keep fighting. So yeah, it's just really weird to me. Like I said, like this guy is a criminal. This is the hero for the black community. And I think this is part of their problems. Like they're putting these people on a pedestal and they're bad people. Like this is the same kind of thing they do with like gang culture, like hardcore rap, like these illegal rappers talking about selling drugs and stuff. Like your heroes say a lot about your community. So if you put these criminals up on a pedestal as your like heroes and you paint murals of them and put holograms up, like that reflects on your community. It's like people that looked up to like dictators in the World War II era, like they had monuments to them too, and they're bad people. The communists in Russia worshipped like Stalin and Lenin and stuff like that. Like that is really bad, and it reflects on the people. Like if you have monuments to a bad person, like your group is showing that they have low expectations and a low kind of caliber of person. I mean, I don't think everyone's like that. I don't think the whole community thinks that. Like black people aren't like a monolith, especially in America. They have a lot of variety, but I'm just saying, like, if you're putting these people up as your hero, it says a lot. It says a lot bad right here. And the other thing that reminds me of the heroizing is like these holograms happened before, like they did like Michael Jackson and Tupac Shakur holograms. And it's the same kind of thing with Floyd. I mean, when you do the hologram, it's a very ceremonial, like honorific thing. Like they're trying to prop them up as they've died, they've passed, and now they're like a ghost, like a hero, like a god. And I just think to put that up with this guy is just really, really bad. This guy compares it to Homer Simpson. Like he kind of looks like Homer now that they say it. I understand it's important not to forget why people are protesting, but why do it there? This is a potential to evoke more violence. Obviously, that's why. That tiny nugget of this seems odd is where I was 5 years ago. You'll start to notice a lot more of that. Soon, you'll be looking at the actual numbers and asking why they're even protesting in the first place, if you can get past that feeling in your gut, probably. And yeah, I mean, this is the point. They want to cause violence. Like, that's a good question from James. Why would they put this up in the South in a region that's like hundreds of miles away from the incident and the guy and his family and his community? So it's, yeah, they're trying to stoke violence. They're putting it down in the South because they want to agitate people over there. They want to overshadow these Southern monuments and say that they're not as important as this criminal who died in Minneapolis, who's become this hero to people. And yeah, like this person said too, if you actually look at the numbers and you talk about the things that they actually claim to care about, like for example, this was supposed to spark a conversation about police brutality, but we already know that only 9 unarmed black people died via the police last year. So the issue that they're addressing is like a non-issue. Like, sure, we don't want 9 to happen. We want it to be 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We want 0 deaths from this. But 9 out of like many millions of people, like we have 300 million people in this country. We have like 13% of that is black people. So the fact that they have 9 dying unarmed is just a non-issue. Like that's not really something that's this dramatic. Like it certainly doesn't warrant this kind of overreaction. We've got everyone in the country supporting BLM and pushing this narrative based off of like a small, insignificant thing. Next, let's read the story on CNN. It says, George Floyd hologram will light up the Robert E. Lee statue in Richmond tonight. So this was on Tuesday. A statue of Robert E. Lee has stood in historic city of Richmond, Virginia for over a century. But on Tuesday night, the focus will not be on the Confederate general, but instead George Floyd, a black man who died at the hands of police. That's an interesting way to put it. I would say maybe a black man who resisted arrest and died because of drugs and complications with a virus, and because he couldn't breathe because his system was all messed up. And to put that at the hands of police, is just really misleading. Starting at 9:30 p.m., a hologram of Floyd will light up the statue on Monument Avenue, which has since been covered in spray paint with phrases like Black Lives Matter and Stop White Supremacy, following the widespread protest demanding racial equality. Right, yeah. Racial equality that we already have, and white supremacy that basically doesn't exist. I mean, if white supremacy existed, how come BLM is everywhere, and how come all these detractors are able to just operate freely and take everything down? I mean, the real people that are haunting us in the streets and tearing stuff down and hurting people are the BLM people, the Antifa, the Biden voters. Liberals, violent liberals are the ones to worry about. I haven't seen any supremacists. I haven't seen one. I've actually asked this question in multiple videos. No one has been able to point out any significant white supremacists, anyone prominent supporting that ideology. Like, we have plenty of evidence of people supporting the violent BLM, the violent Antifa. Like, we have reporters defending them. We have sports stars wearing BLM shirts all over the place. Like, these are the actual violent people that are destroying our country. White supremacy is virtually a myth. I mean, sure, if we went back 100 years ago, we might have seen some gatherings of that or some people wearing white out in the streets once in a while, but it just doesn't happen in the present. It's just this boogeyman fake problem that the left just keeps bringing up as if it's still an issue. And it's because they don't have anything else to fight against. They just are angry, negative people who want to destroy the country. They want to prop up criminals who died high on drugs, who kept pregnant women hostage by pointing weapons at their bellies. That's who their heroes are. That's who they want to worship. And it just goes to show how messed up that side is, how terrible they are. And anyone that donated to this cause is just really being duped. I mean, donating to George Floyd gets you a hologram. Donating to BLM just basically funnels the money over to the Democrats. I mean, have you seen BLM or George Floyd help any single black person? Like, they've raised millions of dollars. Like, the NFL and these sports leagues have donated hundreds of millions of dollars to BLM. But can you name one thing they've done to help? How is George Floyd's fund helping anyone? Like, this hologram is a vanity project. This isn't helping anything. This is just them trying to make this guy a hero, trying to change the narrative and make sure no one remembers all the bad crimes he did, all the terrible people he hurt throughout his criminal career. And it's really bad sign. And that's why I think we have to bring light to it and tell you what the real story is about. So with all that said, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed what you saw. Subscribe if you're new. And until next time, have a great day.